Welcome to the Sacred Emergence Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Wong, and I'm so thrilled that you're here. This is a place where you'll be guided to living your most aligned life so that your truest, most radiant self can emerge. We'll be jamming on topics ranging from spirituality, entrepreneurship, to wellness and lifestyle design, and everything in between that can support you to grow, evolve, and shine, all the while not taking ourselves too seriously. So if you're ready to step into your leadership, break through limiting beliefs, own all of who you are, and expand in abundance, grab yourself your faith cup of tea and let's dive in. Hello, welcome. This is Michelle Wong, and so happy to have you here for a solo episode of the Sacred Emergence Podcast. How are you all doing? I'm recording this over a very beautiful sunny fall Sunday in Seattle, and it's been a while since I've done a solo episode, so I'm so excited. Welcome if you are a brand new listener, and if you are a returning listener, thank you for coming back. Always a pleasure. So what I wanted to talk about today is how I am embodying my human design as a manifestor. And before I dive in, if human design is a completely new thing, if you've never heard of it, I have 2 episodes that highlight human design. One is with Katie Calder, and I'll link it in the show notes. And then another one was done with Vanessa Henry, but we really dive deep into the manifestor energy type of human design. And as I mentioned, I'm a manifestor in human design. So what I wanted to share with you in this episode is how I've been embodying the rest, the deep rest cycle, and the work cycle. And the reason why I wanted to share is because I think it's so important when you learn more about a system that you actually embody it, that you don't just learn it for yourself, but you implement it. And I offer human design readings, and my business has pretty much it's grown this year. A lot of my clients are also international. I love doing human design readings. I've expanded my offerings. I'll share more about that towards the end. And one of the things I've noticed is that for the ones that I've done readings with that actually integrate and implement the pieces that would actually really help them, they really benefit. And last week, or by the time this episode launches, 2 weeks ago, I did a human design interview series, and for 8 of my human design clients. And my mind was blown with the ones, especially the ones that really were implementing it after we had the reading. Some lost weight just by shifting how they were eating. So that would be the interview I had with Wendy Jasper. And relationships, better understanding in relationships or in business dynamics, all the things. And so what my plan is for the Human Design interview series, so they went live on my Facebook personal page. They're all public, so you can check it out. It's also on YouTube. It's also on my Instagram, IGTV, but I will be converting them into the podcast. However, not all of the audios came out very clearly because there was a little bit of lag time. It was recorded during Mercury retrograde, so sometimes the audio wasn't that clear, and sometimes you were talking over each other without it happening in real time, but the recording picked up like that. So not all of the episodes not all the interviews will be shared in the podcast because I think it'll be really frustrating to hear if you don't actually see the video. What you'll hear is just overlapping voices. So if you are interested in any of those, I will link to my Instagram, and you can at least look at the videos for those. But the ones that came out more clearly, I will definitely share in the podcast. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, so manifestor is one of the energy types in human design, and I'm a manifestor. Manifestors are less than 10% of the world's population. Historically, manifestors are more of the kings, the queens, the rulers, and there's less need for that, I think, as the collective, transforms and changes. And so manifestor's role has changed, but at the same time, the energy of the manifestor is still the same. When we talk about energy type, we're looking at the aura. And a manifestor's aura is closed and repelling, which doesn't sound that good. As a manifestor, when I read it, I was like, oh, interesting. This does not sound very friendly. And no, that's not what it's meant for, but it is true. Our aura is dense, repelling. It pushes on other people's auras. And what's interesting is that for me, as someone who grew up conditioned to be a people pleaser, I was like, oh my God, this all makes sense. And before I talk about like what I've been doing with the rest cycle and the work cycle and how I'm integrating that, I did want to just highlight this piece around manifestors, because manifestors are the most conditioned in energy types for human design. We're the most conditioned because coming out of the womb, we're already incredibly powerful. That's the design, that's the aura. It's all felt very subconsciously by others. And so it's like, oh my goodness, what does this child know? We need to control her or him, you know? And so manifestors tend to be the most conditioned to be people pleasing, or just like rage. And Vanessa Henry and I talk about that in our interview earlier this year. So I'll also link that to the show notes. Anyway, so one of the pieces about manifestors is how we're designed to work is actually very different than other energy types. As a manifestor, well, there are 3 energy types that don't have sacral energy active or defined. And that's the manifestor, the projector, and the reflector. So if you're a generator or manifesting generator, you have your sacral energy center defined, which gives you like consistent life force energy. So you're designed to do consistent work. And this is very general. It's much of a generality. It really depends on your chart in terms of like, okay, because I've done human design readings for people who are generators, and they feel like, I don't feel like I have consistent energy. So it really depends on your chart. But because people who have sacral energy defined, the way they interact with energy is very different than how manifestors would, or projectors would, or reflectors. And I want to speak from my own experience here, and just from my own continuing to embody, my design and who I am. And this is going to be a lifelong, for me, it's a lifelong journey of continuing to deepen my own understanding of my own self. And the more I come back to myself, the more I come back into my own energetic alignment, things make more sense when I read more about, this is what manifestors, this is their design. It becomes more integrated in my body. So when I read things about manifestors and I learn more, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. When I first learned about manifestors, it on paper, I was like, oh yeah, our not self emotion is anger. And I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, is that not the case for everybody else? No, this is unique to manifestors. Little things like that I felt was, it's not just for everybody. It's unique to just manifestors. Oh, interesting. And so even for our strategy as a manifestor is to inform. The strategy is very much how in human design, how you're designed to operate in the world, right? To really create more flow and more ease instead of resistance and kind of like friction. For manifestors, we are designed to inform. And when I read that, I was like, inform? What does that even mean? It's basically giving people a heads up on what you're going to do. And the reason why that is because as manifestors, our aura is very dense and repelling. It pushes on other people's energy. So it's helpful for other people to know what we are doing. Otherwise, there's always this tension of, well, what is she doing next? Is she mad? So there's that. And what was funny was when I first read about it, I was like, that is so counterintuitive. I do not want to inform because I don't want people to try to get in my way. And that's one of the things, the manifestor energy is really much about once we are clear and this is the right action to take, this is the right decision, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Right? And one of the things that make manifestors annoyed, angry, is when things get in their way of getting to what they actually want to create, do, have, all the things. And I know that this is very specific to manifestors, and I know that for other energy types, other people, it's like, well, I would get annoyed too if someone was trying to stop me from doing what I want to do. And like, I get that. And as like the energy type, it's just very like the energy that's felt in the body is very distinct. And the more I continue to really step into, aligning with my human design, it becomes more visceral in my body. And when I read more and learn more, it comes alive. So when it comes to the rest cycle, like deep rest, 3/4 of the time, deep rest, 25% of the time we are initiating and creating. When I first saw this, this is for manifestors. When I first saw this cycle, I was like, interesting. That's not how I grew up. That's not how I was taught growing up, right? I mean, how we were all taught growing up is you're in school from, 8 to 3, and then after that, you're in university, like all the things, right? Like you're always constantly scheduled and you're always working or studying. And then after that, if you work in, a typical job, then you're like, okay, I'm there for at least 8 hours plus a day. And then there might be like taking work home, maybe working on weekends. Like that was kind of my, 13 years of corporate life. And so when I read manifestors are supposed to like have deep rest in between work cycles, I'm like, yeah, I don't know how that's going to happen. But luckily, I actually learned about human design as an entrepreneur. And there's, this is my 3rd year, like at the end of December of 2020, it'll be my like complete 3 years of being my own entrepreneur, self-employed, not being a full-time job. And so I've had to really sit with, what does it mean to be in a deep rest cycle? And what does it mean to be in a work cycle? And when I first left corporate, that was like, I did not know human design when I first left corporate. And it took about 3 times for me. It took like 3 tries of me leaving corporate 3 times to like, and this time to be aware of my energy, that I'm finally getting it. So the first 2 times I left corporate, there's months of pure bliss, freedom, and, putting action into towards my business. But, a business doesn't just poof. It doesn't just happen overnight with no effort, right? There needs to be attention and nurturing and cultivating relationships and all of that, and having like business vision with all of that. And so that takes time. You're not necessarily going to see results instantly. Obviously, your results might vary. But from my personal experience, it wasn't happening as fast. And so anytime I just remembered the first time I left corporate, the second time I left corporate, very joyous for the first few months. And then like reality would hit, right? Like it's like the patterning of what I was so ingrained with is, well, if I'm not doing productive work, if I'm not actively making money, then I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting my time, right? It's like I have to do productive work. Otherwise, it's like, what am I doing? And so there's a very deep level of discomfort in not working and not creating the income that directly related to my actual work. And that's very much employee mindset. I'll just say that right there. So it's not even just, human design and manifestor and work rest cycle. A lot of that is ingrained in terms of, conditioning of if I'm not working, then I'm not being productive and therefore I'm not being useful and, tying money to worthiness. So that's totally different topic. But I did have that ingrained within me, and there's a little bit of conditioning there. So there's a lot of guilt of like, well, if I'm not actually doing work, if I'm not actually getting paid, trading in the dollars for the hours, which is very employee mindset, then what am I doing? So that fear, that uncertainty always brought me back into corporate. Now this time around, the 3rd time I left corporate, I think what was different is that there was a part of me that really did not want to go into corporate. So I changed the pattern. I found 2 part-time jobs. One was me teaching Pilates because I've taught that for years. And then I also had like an executive position job that I was like, I'm just going to do this. And that really helped with just settling the need to have some type of stable income flow, right, as I grew my business. And so that was like maybe the first 2 years-ish. And now in 2020, what's shifted for me is as I pivoted my business this year to focus more on personal growth, development, courage, aligning with more human design into my work, and releasing more of the wellness branch of my business. I'm starting to finally feel an alignment. And now I'm way more comfortable with the rest time. And I now really appreciate it. And so as the cycle works, as manifestors, how we're really designed is because we don't have our sacral energy center defined. So for us, it's undefined or open, depending on your chart, if you are a manifestor. And the way that our energy works and that we have a very dense, repelling aura, we are really designed to work in terms of an urge. Like if something, and like it's a divine urge, right? It's just like it comes out of nowhere in a way. And it's like, oh my God, I'm so excited by this idea. It's a yes for me, right? Aligning with my authority. So in human design, authority is how you're designed to make decisions. When that's a yes, then suddenly it's like the energy just comes through. And it comes through by one of the other motor centers that are defined in the manifestor's chart. So what makes a manifestor a manifestor? And I apologize if this is like, what is she talking about? She's going way too deep. This probably isn't the episode for you if you have very little, like if I'm just talking Greek to you right now. But in human design, we have different energy centers, and it's like the chakra system, slightly different, but it's similar in terms of, there's energy centers within the body. And what makes a manifestor is that different energy centers have different purposes. And there are 3 motor centers that, if it is defined and connected to the throat chakra, it makes us a manifestor. If you don't have your sacral energy center defined. That might be a lot of words, but that's what makes a manifestor. So for me, the energy center that I have defined is my ego, willpower, motivation energy center / heart energy center. It's a little bit, if you ever look at a human design chart, it's a little triangle that's on the right side. That's kind of below the diamond-shaped energy center, the G center. So it's a little heart, a little triangle, and it is that it gives energy once I'm motivated. Once it's like a desire, like it's a yes. It's like there's like a visceralness to it of I want this. It's like when I say visceral, it's like, I want, right? It's like a want, right? It's like my desire from being motivated to pursue this thing. And that's what will motivate me. And when that is lit up, like when I am like a yes for that, once my ego authority says yes, suddenly it's like I get things done so quickly. It's easy, it's effortless. And that's what my experience was like when I put together my human design interview series. I was talking to my business coach, and we were talking just about okay, what is it that I want to create next? What's happening? And she was like, since you have time, maybe it's worth interviewing a few of your clients, just to do a case study to see how things are doing since their human design meetings with you. And I was like, oh, that is genius. And I ran with it, So in that case, it was like, I wouldn't say it was like a divine download from the sky. It was me talking to my business coach, and she offered a suggestion. But for me, it was like, oh yeah, let's do this. It was like, yes. And it was motivated by being able to talk to my clients and learning about their before and after, how did things shift for them. And this is very much like, it creates a beautiful asset. It's a really great resource, and it's good for me to learn. It's good for my audience. All of those pieces really lit up my my motivation, root, willpower, defined ego center. And so I was like, that idea landed on Monday. Things were already in place that week. So my first interview was Wednesday, and then I had 2 interviews a day. And then on Friday, I had 3 interviews and another one on Saturday, right? I would have had it on Tuesday if somebody was free on Tuesday, but I decided to, well, because nobody could do Tuesday, the following day, I used that opportunity to put all of my marketing materials together. And literally, idea landed Monday, it was executed immediately, and it was so fun. I had so much energy, it just fueled me. And so that is what it looks like to be in a creative work initiating energy cycle, right? It's like that, like, oh yeah, I love it when that happens. It just flows. Okay. And after that, the following week, it was more of a downtime week. And this is where the deep rest comes in, the nourishing, like having more space, more expansion in my day so that I get to rest. And when I say rest, like it really depends. Like if I felt really drained from that work, then I would definitely need to just be like, okay, I'm just going to, take some naps. I'll just, maybe journal a little bit, maybe meditate. And there might have been a little bit of that, but I wasn't exhausted. It was just, okay, like this week is going to be more of a chill week. So what am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to like catch up on some learnings. I'm going to go on walks and like just have more freedom, more of the feminine in my day versus like I'm now in action mode. So the energy is very different. And I think it really depends on the amount of intensity that was created during the work cycle. But for the deep rise cycle, there are, suggestions that say you need to it's really about ramping up the self-care. And I think it's very different for everybody. For me, I just love having, especially on weekends, I do not enjoy having a back-to-back filled up weekend. The older I get, the more space I appreciate. And like, oh, I don't, and people, I just remember like when I went to work on a Monday when I was in corporate, it was like, oh, what'd you do this weekend? I always felt like I had to give a really good answer, but like, I was like, I didn't do much this weekend, and it sounded boring, but like, oh my God, it's like so amazing when we have that space, when I have that space. And so I love weekends that offer that. And I also love weekdays that offer that. And then in the cycles in between, then I get the work, right? The work to initiate, get something done that really excites me and fuels me. And so this is a very different cycle, very different pattern. And it's not that linear, even how I explained it. It's not that linear, but like in terms of like initiate and then rest, that's the ideal. It's not always that linear. And it's very different than corporate life or the corporate life, like my own lifestyle that I had before I really stepped into what I'm doing now. And so that took time for me to really understand. And one of the shifts really about embodying my human design is, I was it was earlier this year when I was looking at possibly doing I would be open to doing a full-time job if it was work from home, 100% remote, and I get to really have my own schedule. If I could really have a full-time job like that where I can arrange my day and make it so that I just get my work done. I show up and I get my work done. I don't have to clock in like an 8 to 5. If I can really just do my work and then be done, if I can find a position like that, I'd be open to it. And as I was, going down the road of interviewing, it hit me that, what, it's not going to be like that. The job that I was interviewing for, although it was 100% remote, it was not you get to create your schedule. It was like, no, we need you from this time to that time, this range, this 8-hour day. Is that going to be a problem? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's going to be a problem. And the reason why what really made me say no to it is like, I believe in my own dreams. I believe in my direction that I'm going. But one of the nagging feelings in the back of my mind was, Michelle, you're a manifestor and you're really not designed to do an 8 to 5 like that, be it at the office or at home. And if you say yes to this, everything that you've learned, everything it's just going to unravel and you're going to go back to that same old pattern. And what you're really here to do is to show a different way. You're really here to live into your manifestor self, and really give your chance to experience that. And when I remember that as a manifestor, I'm really not designed to do this type of work, this consistent energy showing up every day from 8 to 5 and work like that. And knowing where I really wanted to head, it was like, okay, I'm going to say yes to my dreams, right? And sometimes I'm constantly reevaluating. Yep, this is where I'm heading. Yep, I believe in myself. Yep, I believe in my vision. Yep, like it's uncomfortable, but it's like I'm walking with the fear, right? Like at this moment, like I'm safe, I'm okay. You know, the money's coming in. I'm going to keep going, and that's the deconditioning process that I've been really working on this year. And I feel like finally there's like space for really giving myself permission without the guilt, without the anxiety of, I don't have any work to do at this moment. You know, should I do anything? There used to be that, like, I need to be doing something in order to be, I guess, worthy of the fact that I am an entrepreneur, you know, worthy of the fact that I'm not at a corporate job anymore. And now it's like, oh, like this is what it really means to be embodying my design of, I get to have, I get to embrace all of who I am and to really lean into this energy of, hey, it's now time for me to deeply rest, whatever that means for me, to take it slow, to go out for a nature walk, to do some yoga, to move my body, to dance, to read a book, to catch up on some trainings that I've signed up for. Like that is for me very nourishing. And in the past, there was a lot of like attachments of guilt and I wouldn't say shame, but just guilt and anxiety for not being that level of productivity that I was so conditioned to be in. And so it's taken time to really ease out of that. And sometimes it wasn't comfortable, but the more I'm leaning into this cycle for myself, it feels so good. And I just love my deep rest time. I love it when I'm on and when I get the urge to like, yep, let's go. Let's do this. It feels really good. There's like a deep sense of purpose and I'm in alignment. And when I'm not in that workflow, I'm also in alignment because I know that this is going to really nurture my energy for when the next urge comes. And again, it's not linear. Sometimes it's like, oh, I just had a day of rest. That urge came, let's go. Or I had this idea. Okay. Like there's a little bit of like playing around with all of these and just like, okay, what feels good today? What feels good today? So it's not like as 100%, but it feels so good for me and my nervous system to know that I get to sleep in without the alarm clock for most part of it. And then when I go to sleep, it's like my system gets to really rest and there's quiet. There's this deep level of peace and contentment. And that's all part of the manifestor cycle of, we know we're in alignment when we experience peace. We know we're out of alignment when we experience anger. And so that's how I've been embodying my design more and more and really like understanding it at a cellular level. So because when I first read it, it just like, okay, you know, but now that I'm really integrating this in who I am, it's like, oh yeah, I get it now. You know, I get it at a deeper level than even just reading about it on paper of, okay, so my not self in human design, when I'm out of alignment, it's anger. Now when I'm angry, I'm like, oh, something is off, you know? So it gives me a chance to really reflect. So it's like, it's my chart coming alive the more I embody who I am. And one of the things I wanted to talk about in terms of the manifestor is it feels masculine when we say they're designed to initiate, they're designed to just do it. They're designed to just go, don't get in their way. You know, there's a lot of layers to that, you know, as the manifestor vibe, the manifestor energy type. And when I first saw it, I really was like, oh God, like I felt a little bit conflicted because I'm leaning towards my feminine, right? Like 2020, the theme for 2020 for me is goddess, because it's like when I took this quiz, like, are you more feminine or masculine? I'm actually more feminine. Like there's a deep desire for more femininity, to really surrender and to receive. In my past episodes, when I talked about my knee injury last year, I talked about this is what it feels like to be in my feminine. It's to deeply surrender to help, right? And to have people support me. And it felt really good to have that level of being, like that level of like cherishment, if that makes sense grammatically. It probably doesn't, but like to the feeling of being cherished and to be taken care of. There's this deep like, oh, like that's what it feels like to be in my feminine, and that feels really good. Like I want more of that. And so when we look at the manifestor energy type, it feels more masculine when we're in go mode, but it hit me last week that manifestors are actually feminine. It's when we're in our deep rest cycle that it's the feminine, and we're designed to be more in our feminine because we're ideally meant to be more in our deep rest than we are in the initiate, let's just do this mode. And so when we look at it that way, it gave me peace, that, our signature emotion is peace. That signature feeling is peace for manifestors. Just knowing that, oh, I'm really designed to be in this feminine. It really felt good for me. And if you're listening to this and you're a guy, or you're more, you don't have to be a guy to be more masculine, but like if you lean towards more of the masculine side and you're a manifestor, it's not, there's no right or wrong. It's just, for me, it just felt very like, oh, like more masculine, manifestors more masculine, even in relationships are designed to be more masculine. That wasn't the most comfortable for me, because I'm like, oh man, like I want to be led in, I want to be in my feminine when I'm in a romantic relationship. And I get to have that when I'm in deep rest mode. And that deep rest mode gets to be more of the piece of that pie, that pie-shaped graph, right? Approximately around 75%, right? And so that gave me peace of knowing that. And there's nothing wrong with a man or someone who's leaning more on their masculine to have more of the feminine, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Ideally, we want to be balanced, right? So there's that piece that I just wanted to bring that to surface. If you've ever been told like manifestors are more masculine and there's that go, 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 like I would actually say manifestors have, they're really being called to be in their feminine. The rest, the deep rest, right? The receiving, right? Even getting an urge from the universe, it's opening up to receive that, right? And so we need to be in that deep rest cycle to allow that to come through to us. So that's what I wanted to share with you in today's episode. Some of the pieces where I'm embodying more as my manifestor self. And in the upcoming, future solo episodes, I do want to talk about ways that I've been coming back to my own self and coming back to my own alignment, ways that I am deconditioning and decluttering energy, all of those pieces. But I did want to just give voice to how I'm integrating and embodying my own design type. And in the beginning of this episode, I mentioned that my business has expanded in terms of the human design realm. So I wanted to give just more information around that. I am so excited. Like the more I do human design work, I want to say like human design is part of what I do. I don't want to like silo myself into I only do human design. I really integrate it. It's a big part of my work. But I do a lot of other pieces, and human design is a system that I utilize definitely because it's been so valuable for me and my clients. So I offer 2 ways to get human design readings from me now. One is HD, Human Design HD, HD Express, and the other one is HD Expanded. HD Express is your typical one-off human design reading, where, for my readings, I go pretty deep. So we go foundational and then we go pretty deep into your charts. And the feedback and the testimonials that I've received from my clients is off the charts. Like I'm always blown away. I'm like, oh my God, like I am so happy like that you received that from our reading. And the results from those who are embodying their human design, again, I'm just like, whoa, like I am just like, this is why I do what I do, right? It's people's lives are shifting. They're coming back to their unique selves and they're giving, like, there's no permission needed. Like you are who you are. And this reading, what I see here validates and confirms all of you, who you are and your uniqueness. And that, even if it's an external validation, it gives people like permission, even though nobody needs permission, to continue being their full selves. So there's a Human Design Express reading and then Human Design Expanded. Human Design Expanded, what I love about it is that it gives people more space and more time to digest the information from a Human Design reading. And we break down your chart over a 3-week process, 3-week basis. We meet around 45 minutes-ish a week to go through the different layers of your chart. So you have more time to integrate, more time to come back for questions. And it just gives you more like space to really sink your teeth into who you are through the human design lens. And there's more ability to really expand into who you are during our 3 weeks together. So there's Human Design Expanded. And I'll link that in the show notes so that you can kind of see it, the 2 different options. And then regardless of which Human Design Express or Expanded, whichever one you end up doing, the next step, it doesn't have to necessarily be in this order, but the next step is Human Design Embodied. And Human Design Embodied is where we really come to life with your chart. And this is the client-led piece where we have 4 weeks together, basically a month, where you ask questions and you actually start experimenting with your human design. Now that you have a full picture of your design from a reading, now you get to put it into practice, into your relationships, into your business, into your day-to-day. How are things going, and coming back asking questions and, okay, let's tweak this, try this, and getting a different perspective from what's going on in your life. And so that's been super fun to do, Human Design Embodied. And then I've had clients come back to me and ask if I could do like partner readings between them and their spouses, or between them and their business partners. And I was like, oh my God, like, let's give it a shot. Like, let's go for it. And the results have been incredible. So I've interviewed 2 amazing people who have reached out to me to do duo readings. So I call them dynamic duos. And I'm so blown away. So Trisha Bollender, she came to me asking if I could do like just kind of a dual like analysis of her and her virtual assistant. And after a reading, just after everything she knew about her virtual assistant, all of her assistant's magical powers, basically promoted her or upgraded her, however you want to say it, to chief of staff. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing. So check out that interview with Trisha. I also interviewed Trisha on my podcast because her work is about sacred power. So check that out as well. I'll put all of these in the show notes. And then Paula Ivy, she also came to me to ask about if I could do a partner reading between her and her husband. And Paula already had a one-on-one reading with me. So I was like, yeah, let's do this, And her husband did not know anything about human design, but he left from that reading just like, oh my God, that was so amazing. And like he understood himself more through that, and their relationship, just like, seeing each other in a different way and understanding each other in a different way, and how their energies come together. Really, like, just hearing the feedback from that made just like that experience feel really good. So I not at the time of this recording, I haven't made my offerings for it yet. But for those who know that I do, it's more of the back end. They'll be like, hey, can you do one for me and my husband? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Right. And then, but it's not all, I don't have the marketing pieces for it. It's all word of mouth right now. And kind of just people reach out to me because they've heard about it. But eventually this will, be public offering. It's public right now. It's just, I don't have the marketing piece, but that's all coming soon. So those are some ways that if you are interested in learning about human design and integrating this more into your life, those are some of the ways, some of my offerings that I have. And then I also have one-on-one coaching that integrates all of these pieces, but we just work together for a minimum of 3-month capacity, and then it grows from there. So, and I also offer bundles for those who know that they might want, a human design reading with embodiment. There's honestly there's no point in getting a human design reading if you're not going to implement it. It's just information. So I really recommend, even after the reading, to integrate it more. And then obviously I'm here if you want to have more guidance and coaching around it. So that's what I wanted to share for you today. If this was relevant, please share. If you know of any manifestors in your life, please share this with them so they have a deeper level of understanding from, just reading information on the interwebs. And if you love this episode, please share it. I always love that people share. So you can tag me on Instagram. That's probably the best way. Instagram stories, all of that, or even Facebook stories. And if this podcast resonates with you, I would love, I'll just share my desire, a 5-star iTunes review. That would just melt my heart. So thank you so much for tuning in. More to come. Have a beautiful, beautiful week wherever you're at. Take care.
Join our free private Facebook group community, Sacred Emergence, to receive more connection, guidance, and support. And take part in our 5-day Inner Confidence Challenge to not only boost your confidence, but to help activate your inner leadership. Details in the show notes. Thank you for listening to the Sacred Emergence podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and thank you in advance for sharing this with others who can benefit. Until next time.